friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love. As we head back to school and transition from the rhythms of summer into school schedules, practices, lunches, homework, appointments, and all the things, our mental load can get really heavy. All the things our brain is thinking about. So our goal today on this podcast is to not make your brain better at carrying all the things. It's actually going to help your brain put some things down so it doesn't have to think and remember all the things. We're going to talk about the mental load and what it actually is. And then I'm going to give you 5 tiny tweaks that can make life feel a little easier right now. But here's the deal. I don't want you to do all 5. One idea, I just want you to think of one that you think, yeah, if I tried that this week, it would make my life easier. So I want you to listen with that intention and let's get started. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what the mental load is. I feel like that's a word that's floating around the internet all the time right now. And it's like, okay, but what is it actually? And it's important for us to define it, not just for ourselves, but I think it's really important to define it for our family and especially our significant other and key stakeholders, because oftentimes they'll be like, okay, I took that off your plate, but they don't understand that it's not just the one to do item. So for example, one of the things you're probably doing right now is thinking about making school lunches, whether your kids are taking hot lunch or cold lunch or some combination of each. And that sounds like one task, making school lunches. But what's actually happening in your brain when you're thinking about school lunches is, what is my kid actually going to eat? And what do we already have on hand? And what are we running out of? And what needs to get put on the grocery list? And when am I going to go get groceries? And do I need to prep anything ahead of time? Do I need to wash those grapes? And am I making lunches tonight or tomorrow morning? And are the lunch boxes and water bottles clean and ready to go? And does anyone have something different happening tomorrow that would change their lunch? And how am I actually going to remember to send the lunches with them, right? One task, 10 questions. And maybe that feels like an exaggeration, but that is what's happening in our brain for each to-do item on our list. Maybe some have more questions and some have less, but that's the mental load. It's not just the doing of the thing, it's the noticing, the remembering, the deciding, the planning, the anticipating, and the following up that surrounds each of those tasks. It's why the mental load feels so hard to delegate. Like I said, when somebody, maybe your spouse or your kid says, I'll make the sandwich, you're like, oh, thanks, but you still feel this weight associated with it. And it's because it's all those invisible questions and little to-dos that are associated with it. And if you're still the one who has to notice that you're out of bread and add it to the grocery list and know which bread everyone eats, buy it, and remember that tomorrow is a hot lunch day, then your brain is still managing lunch even though somebody else makes the sandwich. So instead of asking, how can I get better at remembering everything? I want us to ask a different question. How can I give my brain a little less to remember? And that's where these 5 tweaks we're going to talk about come into practice. Okay, number 1, stop trusting yourself to remember. Not because your memory isn't good. However, I will drive around town trying to remember something and cross my fingers, like my index finger and my middle finger. I'll cross them because this helps me remember things. And so by the end of a car ride, sometimes I'll have if you're watching on YouTube, multiple fingers crossed so that I don't forget when I get home. Or if there's a pen nearby, I will write it on my hand so that I don't forget, right? Our brain is remembering so many things. And you might be lying down to bed at night and something comes to mind and you're like, I'll remember that in the morning. And I don't know about you, but that never happens. The next morning, I'm like, I was supposed to remember something. That part of the puzzle got sent on, but the other part of what exactly it was does not. So I want you to pay attention to how often you say, I need to remember that. Don't forget pickup is early. I need to remember to call the dentist. Don't forget to send that form tomorrow. Anytime you start to hear yourself say, I need to remember, I want you to think about, is there something that you can do to help your brain remember? One of my favorite things, especially with pickup and drop-offs at the beginning of the school year when they're still new, right? We're still getting used to new practice times. Or maybe your kid is going to a new school and they have a different start and end time. I like to set alarms in my phone. I just put them Monday through Friday. You can go right to your phone clock app and you can click alarm. Click the plus in your top right-hand corner if you have an iPhone, and then you can pick the time you want, and then it says repeat. You're going to pick, you can click every day of the week. So you could click every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's a little check mark that appears next to it. And then where it says label, you're going to label that alarm to be like soccer pickup or dance drop off or whatever you want it to be. And then you can go ahead and set that up in your phone. It is so nice. And your brain doesn't have to remember. I find that I'm more present and focused on the task that I'm doing than my brain every 5 minutes looking at the clock being like, is it time to go yet? Is it time to go yet? I just know that the alarm will alert me when it's time to go. The other thing, like I mentioned already, a little hack that I have, I do a morning quiet time where I write in my gratitude journal. I normally read a devotional, have my cup of coffee, and if I take my phone with me, it's just not a good thing because then I find myself scrolling and it's not the way that I want to start my day. But in that time, usually something comes to mind that I need to remember. See? That cue, like I need to remember, that should give us a cue. And so I have my pen, and so you'll find me that I'll have things written on my hand that I need to remember for later. It's kind of like my built-in sticky note, and it has worked for years. People always make fun of me because I have a stationery company, right? Like all the notepads and to-do lists, but sometimes just having your built-in sticky note right on your hand is so helpful. Writing it down is so helpful. Another thing is to just put those recurring appointments in your calendar. That way you don't have to remember, like just always putting them in the calendar right when it happens. Another thing I like to do is if it's not an immediate need for this week, that it doesn't go on your agenda for this week, is I love to leave a sticky note for myself on a future month in my paper calendar. So for example, I have a couple of work tasks that I want to get done in September and October, but I thought of them this summer. So I wrote myself a sticky note and I put that in the September and October sections of my planner. That way I could reevaluate when the time came and I wouldn't forget. My brain wouldn't have to remember that so far in advance. And that works for like maybe you want to plan a vacation or you need to call and book a venue for something that you're doing, or you need to call and make a mammogram appointment. Putting those sticky notes in a future part of your planner is going to help you so much, and you don't have to worry about it or remember it. It's like one less thing for your brain to remember. And then the last idea for your brain having to just remember is a visual cue. These are especially helpful when your brain is packed full of things. So if it's library tomorrow, put the library books on top of the backpack. If it's soccer, leave the soccer cleats out. I'm all for removing unintentional visual clutter and making sure that the visual clutter or the visual items that are out serve a purpose. Like my vitamins are on the counter so that I don't forget to take them. Maybe for you, it's putting your running shoes out in the morning so that you go on that walk. Whatever it is, just allowing yourself a visual cue to help you remember to do the item. Maybe it's even just laying out the lunch boxes the night before so that your kids and you remember, okay, right away in the morning, we need to put the lunch boxes out. So these are just some simple ways that you don't have to make your brain just remember, because, oh my goodness, that's a lot for your, we just have a lot to remember. And so any little tips like that are so helpful. Okay, number 2, get that swirl out of your head. In full seasons especially, I want you to think about getting into the habit of a morning brain dump. You could even do this before bed. Sometimes that's extra helpful too because your brain is swirling at night and it's hard for you to go to bed. So maybe you do it at night for the next day, almost like a kiss to your brain the next morning. But just I have a brain dump notepad in the shop for this reason. I believe in it so strongly. But on the left-hand column is just an open column. And that's where you're going to write down every single thing you think you want to do, you need to do, maybe even some things that will bring you joy that you want to make sure you do, like taking a walk or getting dressed or taking a shower or doing a load of laundry. That doesn't always bring me joy, but it's something I need to do, right? It's not just work tasks. It's not just mom tasks. It's all the tasks. And when we take it out of our brain and we put it down on paper, it does two things. Number one, we're 42% more likely to remember to do things when we write it down, which goes back to our last tweak, which is stop making your brain just remember. So that solves that problem. And when we see it on paper, we can organize it in a way that makes more sense than in our brain. Like our brain doing Tetris of like, okay, if I shower at this time and I go work out at this time, but I gotta work out first, then I gotta shower. Like that's a lot of brain gymnastics as opposed to seeing it on paper and saying, okay, this is all that I have to do today. And that's on the left-hand side of my paper. And then on the right-hand side, on our notepad especially, there's 5 blocks. And those can either be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you want to do a brain dump for the week, or how I like to do it is for the day. So what is priority number 1? What makes the most sense to do first? And for me, I always do the hardest, most brain-intensive work in the morning because my brain is most online at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it just decreases as I get more tired throughout the day, right? My creativity diminishes throughout the day. So anything that I have to be really creative with, like writing this podcast episode, writing my book, writing any captions, my email for the week, anytime I have to really think creatively, I do that right away in the morning. And then as the day goes on, I do more tidbitty tasks like email, housework, things that I can move around and it doesn't take as much creative brain work. So that's how I do my brain dump notepad. And when you're done, what you're going to find is once you get the right side of, okay, this is what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to do this next, your to-do list kind of bosses you around and it takes the decision from your brain of what should I do next. Your brain doesn't even have to think about that because you've already made that decision. And again, when your brain is making upwards of 35,000 decisions a day, anytime we can remove even 1 or 2 tidbitty decisions, it's like an exhale for your brain. One less thing I have to think about so I can think about the more important things. Highly recommend doing a brain dump notepad, especially on the days where you feel like, ooh, my brain is swirling. I feel really overwhelmed. This is great for seasonal or, like I said, every single day. That's tiny tweak number 2. Get in the habit of doing a brain dump. It totally helps your brain take an exhale. Number 3, for lightening the mental load, give important information a home and a time to do it. Okay, so right now you're probably getting bombarded with back to school emails, new sports schedules, new and different homework routines, all of those sorts of things. And it's coming into your inbox, it's coming through your kids' school folders, right? And it's really easy, first of all, to miss something, which we've all done, right? If you read my book, you know that I missed Quincy's Super Reader Day, or almost did, but I went in braless in my pajamas. Oh, you only make that mistake so many times. So I set a time on my calendar to take care of these tasks. And I know it sounds so simple, but putting a thing where it says either check email or go over papers, whether that's you do that daily or you do that weekly, is really helpful. So for example, for email, for me, I actually don't check my email first thing in the morning. Like I said, my best creative juice time is right away in the morning. And email just doesn't require as much creativity. It's a lot more just to do tidbitty stuff. How many times can I say tidbit in one email, in one podcast? Anyway, so I wait actually to send and check email until after my deep creative work is over. So it's usually right before lunch or right after lunch. And that I always check my email at my computer. I do not have my email on my home screen of my phone. I can search up email on my phone should I be out and about and need to double check something, but I'm never checking my email on my phone anymore. And here's why. I sit down and I check my email and I have that time set aside to put anything I need to on the calendar, add it to a list, put it on a sticky note to do on a different week, respond to it, file it, or delete it. That's the time I'm doing all of those things. So I'm not checking my email, say, in between meetings and realize I need to put another meeting on the calendar and then totally forgetting. I'm doing that at that set time during my day. And it has been a game changer at actually getting the things that I need to do onto my calendar, responding in a timely manner, and then taking care of all of that. So putting that time on your calendar daily in a spot that makes sense. Doesn't necessarily have to be right away in the morning. And then as far as papers are concerned, this is another one. Maybe you do it once a week. And so you have a basket on your counter. But the trick is what often happens and where it trips people up is they have a basket on their counter, but they never have a set time to come back and address it. So this might be on Fridays, you plan out your week, you meal plan, and you go over all of the papers in your basket. Or maybe it's once a day. Your kid brings home their folder, you're having their snack. If you haven't listened to episode 171, where I talk about after school routine, this is when I'm doing that paper sort, right? The kids come in, they put their papers on the counter. While they're having a snack, we have a quick just little check-in. How was school? What are these papers? And we go over them right then and there. Anything that needs to be returned, I can put back in their folder. Anything that I need to put on my calendar, I do that right then and there. That way it gets done. So sometimes the tweak is having a set time where you're sitting down to do email and you're sitting down to actually sort through the papers. Having a spot to store them is one thing, and then actually having a time where you're going to follow through and take care of them is another. And another thing is I get a lot of papers that the kids bring home that are also found online. So lately, I have been just defaulting to the online, and I have a folder of kids' email stuff, emails from teachers, their beginning of the school year, class information. I just have a little folder in my email, should I need to reference it in my email files, and then I can go back to that, and then I just go ahead and recycle the paper version. But that, again, is up to you. All right. But it just having a set place and a set time, both of those together is going to make a big difference. Okay. Tweak number 4. Decide once what you keep deciding. This is just another one of those that can just make your brain take an exhale. Think about all the things that you decide every day that you could turn into a rhythm. So I'm a huge proponent of rhythms. Again, if you haven't listened to episode 171, I'll put it in the show notes. It's all about creating an after school rhythm so that those decisions are decided for you, right? We're not having to decide, should I eat my snack or wash my hands first? Or should I hang up my backpack or put away my shoes first? Like we have this rhythm, and all of those decisions are made for us because we follow this rhythm. It's the same with breakfast. Are you deciding what's for breakfast every morning? Or would it be simpler if you said, these are the 3 breakfast options we have this week? Those are that decision has been made. Same with dinner. It's oftentimes people think, oh, meal planning, right? But if we think about it being a kiss to our future self, a kiss to our brain of like, okay, I'm just going to write out these 5 simple meals that we're going to have. I don't have to think about it at 5 p.m. when my brain is just depleted from the day. Same with what are we packing for lunches? Maybe this week they're having 5 days of pepperoni, string cheese, and crackers, plus a yogurt and some fruit and veggies, whatever that is for you. But maybe you just have like a system that works in this season, and you can, of course, tweak it, but just simplifying any of the decisions you have to make. Maybe it's like, when are you doing laundry? Maybe it's like, okay, we're just going to assign Mondays this day, Tuesdays this day, whatever it is. Again, these aren't foolproof and they aren't like perfectly prescriptioned for your life. But just think about, what are the decisions you are making repeatedly that you could just say, actually, this is what we're doing right now. Like maybe every Monday you're having sandwiches because you go to JV football games. Maybe every Tuesday you're having tacos because it's Taco Tuesday and everyone loves tacos. What are some little decisions that you could decide once and be done so your brain doesn't have to think about them anymore? Think about that. All right. And then last but not least, the last tweak I want you to think about for lightening your brain's load is get that week out of your head. Somewhere along the way, as moms especially, we became the gatekeeper of our family's schedule. And I don't know about you, but as my kids have grown older, so has the schedule gotten bigger, right? And that's just that much more that my brain has to remember. And again, it's never just Vera has to be picked up at 5 p.m. It's who are we carpooling with? Which kid do I need to get? What time do I have to leave the house? What shirt does she need to wear today? Does she need to take dinner, right? It's all those little tidbitty tasks associated with each to do. So if we can get the schedule out of our head and down on paper so that we are no longer the only person that knows, that not only invites the rest of the family to get on the same page with us, literally, but it helps them to make some of those decisions for themselves instead of us having to remember everything for everyone. So again, on Fridays, I like to do it on Fridays because I like to be able to enjoy my weekend. My friend Laura Vanderkam says, then you get to plan your weekend twice, and we should all be planning our weekend twice because they're so valuable. But I like to plan it on Friday, mostly so I can go into the weekend knowing next week is handled. And I take all of the long range dates I have in my phone and I write them on our weekly plan notepad. Things that my kids are doing, even what I'm doing so that Scott knows if he needs to step in during the day, especially like in the summer or after school if I'm not going to be home. But this is really helpful to just write it all out. And then I put it on the fridge so everyone can see it. And then we always have like a little bit of a family meeting on Sunday to go over the week, to talk about anything that, is happening in our home that we need to address. And then we're all on the same page. Scott and I have a little meeting of the minds as far as like, okay, who's picking up what kid, when, where, all of those sorts of things. And then every morning we kind of go over it while we're having breakfast. But I'm no longer having to hold all of our schedules in my head, which just kind of gives me a headache to think about. I did that for so long. And then one day I was like, I can't do it anymore. Things are flying out of my head. I'm forgetting things and forgetting kids. And the simplest tweak was to write it all down. Okay, so if your brain has felt like 245 tabs are open lately, remember, you don't need to get better at keeping all of those tabs open. You can close a few by letting your tools remember rather than your brain. Getting a brain dump notepad and writing everything you need to do down onto paper. Giving important information both a home and a time to process. Deciding once a simple rhythm instead of deciding the same things over and over again. And again, picking just one of those rhythms. Maybe it's just simplifying breakfast or simplifying your after school. And then get the family schedule out of your head and on to paper so that everyone can be on the same page and you are no longer the sole gatekeeper of your schedule. I want to leave you with one question. What's one tiny tweak that you can take away from today's episode and apply to make your life easier this week? That's the goal of this whole shindig. The goal of all of Simple Purposeful Living is what can you do this week to make your life a little bit easier? And then what's your next step? What's that tiny thing you can do today? Pick that tweak and try it because they add up. I say all the time, you don't have to overhaul your life to love it. It starts with noticing the one place that's harder than it needs to be, and then making one tweak to make it just a little bit easier. Okay, so before I leave today, we're going to try something new. If you've listened for a long time, you know that I'm always asking my guests these two questions. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of fun if I ended every episode, even if I'm not interviewing somebody, sharing these two, because I always love being able to notice the tiny joys and the tiny tweaks in my life. So, tiny joy number one is that I have been loving sitting on my front stoop this summer. So I've been a long time back deck sitter. I go outside, I drink my coffee, but this summer, as you know, we've kind of redone our entire backyard and it's been a hot mess. So it's not as the respite that it has been in the past. So I've been sitting on my front stoop, but it's been kind of fun because I get to see neighbors and who's out walking early in the morning. And so I have been enjoying my front stoop sit. So that's my tiny joy from this week. And then my tiny tweak that I've made lately Sounds simple, but speaking of brain dumps, I have been writing on my calendar to do laundry because my brain would forget to do it. Like, I think I don't know if it's like conspiring against me because laundry is not my favorite task. Although I read the other day that doing a load of laundry or watering your flowers can help reset your nervous system. So if you're feeling like you're a little dysregulated or a little stressed or overwhelmed, doing a mundane routine task like that actually helps you reset, especially if you do it with no outside stimuli. So no Marco Polo or podcast or TV. Like you're just folding the laundry. It actually can help. So it has given me a little more motivation to do it. But like today, I wrote down, do a load of laundry. And it just helps me to remember to do it. Like it sounds so simple, but again, when our brains are remembering so much, it just flies out of our brain. We get to the end of the day, and I don't know about you, then I'm like, ugh, I forgot to do laundry again. And then I just feel behind. So the simple tweak of writing it down to make sure I get it done, because I love to cross things off a list, has helped so much. Okay, friends, I hope that this helped you think about how can you love on your brain a little bit. It's not because your brain is broken. We are trying to remember so much. So think about what's one tiny tweak where you can love on your brain a little bit and take off the mental load. I'll see you next week. If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.